Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast. Today we're talking with Allison Schaaf. Allison is the founder of the Miscarriage Hope Desk and founder of Prep Dish, a meal planning service. Allison is also a mom to three.
Welcome to the You Are a Philanthropist podcast with Jenn, a certified fundraising executive and philanthropic entrepreneur. This show is dedicated to empowering and inspiring you to make a difference in your community and our world. Jenn believes all acts of kindness matter, and this show is designed to help you take pride in your everyday actions of improving the lives of others and making a change in the world. Now, here's Jenn.
Allison, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Me too. I love talking to you and people like you who are making a difference in the world. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about you, your work with founding the Miscarriage Hope Desk.
Yeah, so gosh, it started, I think as a lot of things do in life, right? It started with a personal experience of, getting married, wanting to start a family, and, honestly thinking the toughest decision was, how many kids are we going to have? and when should we start trying, and trying to plan the timing and have it just all work out. Just, you kind of have this vision of how it's going to go. And, pretty quickly into our fertility journey, we started running into issues. And, the main one being I would get pregnant and then miscarry. And it happened once and then twice and then three times. And it sort of just kept happening. And as that happened, it was, just so difficult to go through. And I really struggled in finding resources, a community, like anyone who had been through it. It was easy enough to, here's someone maybe that's had one miscarriage or something like that. But then, the situation of having recurring pregnancy losses was not something I realized was really, I didn't know that was even within the realm of possibility. I hadn't been exposed to that. And so as I was going through it, my husband and I are both entrepreneurs, and I remember me and him having a discussion of I would love to have more resources out there for women like me. And I knew at some point that I was, already feeling called to, create something to support women that were having, struggles similar to mine.
I'm so sorry for your loss. And I am so grateful to hear about how you wanted to help others and to turn your pain into purpose.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, there's, something that's very, I think, therapeutic in going through the process of having, really difficult time or hard struggle, and then turning around and helping others that are having similar struggles.
You mentioned the word called, and I'm just wondering if you felt called by God or just an inner spirit of yours.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I feel like it's God, but I think that, it's open. Everyone has their own interpretation of what a calling feels like. But for me, I consider that God giving me that calling.
I love that. Yeah, my calling is to help elevate your voice and voices like you of people putting good into the world so that people get encouraged and can hear your story, your resilience, the nonprofit you founded. And can you tell us more about what your nonprofit does?
Yeah, so, kind of set out in a few different directions. And, the places where we've really landed are one, resources and information, which is a blog post and a newsletter that, I feel like a lot of times my doctors would, not that they were trying to hide things, but I just feel like there weren't like these deep, in-depth explanations. It would just be kind of like, oh, like this is going on and this is what it means. But I wanted the research, right? Like when you're going through something like this and so determined, like, I want to know, like, I got a diagnosis of antiphospholipid syndrome. I'm like, well, what does that actually mean? And what does the research say? And what are the, I wanted to really dig into the protocols and, why are you recommending this and not that? And so, a lot of it's creating those kind of articles, but also really helping women to learn to advocate for themselves. I think a lot of times it's hard to be in these situations, and it's easy to kind of feel like, oh, like, just pretend like you don't know what's going on. And I really like to help advocate for women of stepping up and asking the questions at your doctor's office, and knowing when it's time to maybe, seek other answers, or, look for another doctor. And so that's a big piece of it. And then, the community piece, we have an Instagram account that really, honestly, I was kind of surprised how much that took off. And the most surprising thing, I think, with some of our communities is it's not just women that are in the moment struggling. It's been a lot of women that it's like, this happened to me 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but I never had the space or the time to really process it or to share it with others. So it's really this thing that, allows women this space to grieve together, process together. And then one of the pieces with Miscarriage Hope Desk that I'm most proud of is we created a free mentorship program. So it's one-to-one mentors. So it's women that have been through it and doing just what I've done with Miscarriage Hope Desk, turning around and helping someone behind them that's having a shared struggle. And like I mentioned, it's the mentors are getting as much out of the relationship as the mentees. My big dream for that program was that the mentees eventually graduate and are mentors. We've already had that happen more than once. And I love seeing that, just the women that are, getting support, then they're turning around and giving the support. And again, both sides of the relationship are gaining so much just by having that. It's such a unique and difficult experience to go through. And it's really hard to find people that get it, and even in the infertility world, I think miscarriage can be different, because it's easy for someone else struggling with infertility to think, oh, well, at least you're getting pregnant or something like that, And so I think it's good to have women that are really having the shared experience be able to lean on each other and have a space where someone understands and they can really talk about it openly. And so that, to me, like, that was the vision. And so seeing that play out in terms of this mentorship program has been really cool to see. And then, we do have a podcast right now. We're not actively adding episodes, but I always say the archives are great. It's a combination of, stories of hope and also interviews with experts. But those are the different pieces that we've put together to add, this community and support and resources for women that are struggling with miscarriage.
How can people find you on Instagram and podcast?
We are Miscarriage Hope Desk everywhere. So Instagram is at Miscarriage Hope Desk, the podcast Miscarriage Hope Desk. It's all the same, so we make it easy to to find us.
Good. I will put those links in the show notes as well. Mm-hmm. And, there are people listening today who are going through this, and I wonder what your advice might be to them today.
I think one of the most important things is to really pause and check in with yourself on what you need and listen to that. Not to other people, right? It's, don't expect that maybe, your doctor may not ask. I don't know. I didn't have a doctor that ever came up to me and said, well, how are you doing emotionally? Or, how are you feeling about this? And that's okay. That's not necessarily their job, but I want to give you permission. If the grieving process does not have a timeline, there's different stages or kinds of miscarriages. None of that matters. What matters is kind of you and checking in with yourself and taking the time that you need to grieve and process through things. So giving yourself the space and time to do that is so important. And then, from there, there's, different paths and ways that you can move forward. But I think the most important first step is just allowing yourself that space to grieve and go through what you need to. And even if outside forces maybe aren't, it can be tricky because people that haven't been through it may not totally understand.
I'm just thinking about also the fact that we don't talk about this topic a lot. And I wonder what your thoughts are about either communicating about it with others or not communicating, or just how you feel overall about the fact that it isn't something we openly talk about.
Yeah. So you hit on a really big thing for me and with Miscarriage Hope Desk, because I'm a big proponent of sharing, but with some caveats. Like before you share, check in and see what you're comfortable with. I mean, I know I share mine with the world, but also I never share them in real time. I've never had a miscarriage and hopped on the internet the next day and shared that part of me. I wait until I feel like I'm ready. I've talked to my husband about it. I've shared with him what I plan to share about, what we've been through. I do think it's important to share. Again, it doesn't need to be a Facebook post, but it can be. So I think just figuring out what works for you. Maybe that's a therapist, maybe that's a friend or a family member, but finding someone to share it with, because I do find that sometimes there are, as I mentioned earlier on the Instagram account, of people that struggled with a miscarriage maybe 10 or 20 years ago. Part of the reason they're still struggling is they've never shared it with anyone. So having that space to share with someone, I would just think through and be intentional with who and how you do share it. But if you are open to sharing it kind of more widely, I think you would be amazed at, who you could help by doing that, right? Like every time I do share my story, it's, or if I'll mention like, oh, I'm the founder of, I founded Miscarriage Hope Desk, just in a social setting. And then, I'll hit on someone that maybe needed to hear it that day. So I would just encourage people to share when they're ready.
I'm so impressed by your ability to both found a nonprofit as well as have your own business, be a mother, share your, challenging story. And I wonder how you are doing it all.
Well, I don't do it all, that's for sure. And, it's just figuring out kind of where my role is best, where I best fit in each place. So for example, with Miscarriage Hope Desk, when we did the podcast, I was never the host. I would sometimes do one-on-one or like a update just for me personally, but I never did our interviews, partly because I emotionally couldn't take that on. That was too much for me. So we had someone else that did the interviews. And even same thing with our Instagram account. While I do run it now, I don't go in every day and respond to comments because I know emotionally I can't handle that. But we've got a great community and they respond to each other and they don't need that from me. So I kind of have boundaries on where I plug in and where I don't. And I am very intentional about that so that I can be effective in, providing what I provide. But like you said, not then overextending myself. Prep Dish, my company that I founded, I started that 12 or 13 years ago now. And I have an amazing team of kind of 4 or 5 of us. Most of them have been with me like over 5 years. So when I went into motherhood, I knew that my business was in a good place and I had the support I needed. And even through my infertility challenges and all my losses, I really had a team there that I could rely on to help, keep things going. And and then motherhood too. It's, it's a lot, but, and I also have some help with the kids as well, but trying to make sure you are all, doing all of the things well. But I just really try and like make sure that I have time for all of them and very, I guess, present. And, I'm not working when I'm in front of my kids and I'm, vice versa. It's like kind of parsing it out that way, I guess. So.
You sound like a very smart woman.
Thank you.
I can relate a lot because I have my podcast and business. You are a philanthropist as well as working as a major gift officer and being a mom of 2. I have not yet founded a nonprofit. I know how challenging it is as a fundraiser. So one of the reasons why you impressed me as well is because of your ability to juggle that. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got incorporated and started a nonprofit?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to help with that too. And I will say the main thing for me is when I'm doing something, I juggle a lot of things, but I'm not a multitasker, and I'm very like, like I do one thing at a time, but even though there's a lot going on. So yeah, with a nonprofit. So when I started out with Miscarriage Hope Desk, I originally wanted it to be a nonprofit, but then I was working with someone to sort of help with the branding and the creating the website and stuff. And we landed on actually having it was a business, and then I was going to do courses. So I kind of went down that path for a year or two, and then we got into it, and I realized I didn't want to make money off of it. Like that wasn't ever really the intention. And so then I switched over to becoming a nonprofit, and just through kind of word of mouth, found someone locally in town or in the state of Texas that I live in, and hired an attorney to help with all the paperwork side of it. Because I've heard people that was their frustration in terms of, getting it off the ground. I'm very friendly with a lot of the nonprofits in the infertility space, especially there's some wonderful other, nonprofits that focus on miscarriage. So I talked with a lot of them and got some recommendations, and definitely got help with that side of things. So I wasn't like bogged down in the paperwork.
Yes. And tell me, how many staff members do you employ? I'm guessing you're a national organization. Do you do regional things too?
It's mainly just all online. We've had different contractors over the years, the podcast host. I've had people manage the social media account. So, kind of depends on what we have going on, but then a lot of it's me. And then, in terms of like fundraising and funding, we do get donations. A lot of it is self-funded as well. It's just something me and my husband are both passionate about. So we have helped to fund quite a bit of it as well.
That's wonderful. We want to make sure that my listeners know how to find you so they can support you as well.
Yes.
And can you tell me what your website is as well?
Yep, miscarriagehopedesk.org.
Great.
Yep.
And I wonder if you could tell me kind of in what ways do you enjoy creating this nonprofit, giving back to your community, and making a difference in the world?
It really comes from, I think this is, anytime you're doing philanthropy or giving back in any way, it kind of comes from a very personal, and I don't want to use the word selfish, but it comes from a place where you're getting a lot back, right? And I think for me, like I'm gonna joke up now, but like, I always wanted a family, and it was so hard to get to where I am now, but it was so worth it. And so to be able to be a part of that journey for other women and to get them where they want to be, and to realize like, even in the moment when it is really hard, it ultimately can lead to such a beautiful place. I think, that's just a blessing for me that I get to be a part of that. And so to me, it's just rewarding to be able to give back to other women to be able to experience that. So
That's so kind and so beautiful and so thoughtful. I actually wrote a book called Giving is Selfish, but it's just a provocative way to
exactly. I know it's like kind of the default, but it's like I wish there's a better way to put this.
Yeah, no, I should find another way to put it. It's actually something Denzel Washington said in a commencement speech, and it just stuck with me because I had to replay the clip. I'm like, no way. He did not just say that giving is selfish. I thought he said selfless.
No.
And then I came to realize, wow, there is so much joy in giving back and in helping others. And I believe, as I say, we're hardwired to give by God, our creator. And there's just this wonderful feedback. I like to say it boomerangs back to us. So as you said it's therapeutic. I know some people would use the word cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings me joy sharing stories of you like you who give hope to others, who comfort them, who remind them that they're not alone. It's really remarkable work that you're doing. And just as, somebody who is part of, the philanthropic community, I just want to thank you for sharing your story, for being vulnerable, for putting yourself out there, for being hardworking. In doing these interviews, it can seem so easy, and it can seem like, there's this, what's the word I'm looking for? There's this big, great vision you had all along, or, and it's really just about putting one step in front of the other, isn't it?
No, it is. I mean, and that's true of building business, nonprofit, and family, right? Like, it's like you've just got to kind of keep going, and and eventually it's like, oh wow, here I am.
What would you say for people who don't know how to give back? Maybe they've never done it, or they don't do it regularly. What would you say to encourage them to just get out there and start something that they've never done before?
I think it would first be to, check in and see where, you, I kind of go back to like that calling, but, where have you received help, or what things are really moving to you? And then I think a lot of times when you think back about that, it can be really inspiring, of like, maybe someone helped you in a certain way, and it's like, I really want to give back in the same way that they gave. Or, just something that's personal. It could be like a family member or a parent, or, I've been through things in life with family members, or things where it's like, oh, now I'm really, feel very passionate about this thing. So I would just look into that. I think we've all had, and fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of things, they start with some sort of struggle or difficult time, but it's a good way to kind of add a silver lining to what you've been through.
It's interesting. I didn't found this business until after I had my first son, and it just shows how life changing being a mother is, being a parent, caring for others, and how life changing that is. It certainly was world shattering for me when I left my dozen years of nonprofit experience to stay home with my kids, and found this business and wanting to share the joys of giving back to others. And I'm wondering if you could tell me both two things. What is your vision for Miscarriage Hope Desk? And what is your vision for a better world?
Um, so for Miscarriage Hope Desk, one is just, this mentorship program. I want it to, like I said, just keep going and having these mentees turn into mentors, and just kind of continue that cycle of support. Personally, I am working on a memoir that outlines my fertility journey. I do have a biological son, and then we've also adopted. And so just kind of going through the struggles, the joys, all of that. So that's something I have been working on. And I think it's just a way that I can share my story in a more meaningful way. Like, it's been great to share it through Miscarriage Hope Desk in bits and pieces. And we also highlight lots of other, stories and experiences, because everyone's is so unique. But I'm excited to be able to share mine in a much more personal and in-depth way. In terms of, a better world, I think, if we could figure out ways to help with miscarriage, and improve the research there. But some of it, yes, like I wish women didn't have miscarriages or pregnancy loss, but I think also even just providing a better environment for women that are struggling with it, having things in place where they do feel supported and they don't feel so lonely, and there's just more resources to go through it in a better way. And I know there's a lot of people out there trying to kind of impact that and change that, and eventually have less of them overall. I think that would be wonderful. So
I have a couple thoughts. Well, one is that my listeners who have been through this, and are feeling the calling, as we talked about, to the inkling within them right now where they might want to help others who have been through this and turn their pain into purpose, they should reach out to you right away.
Yeah, no, I love, being the connector in that way. So definitely. And I mean, it's easy to find me on Instagram or, the website. There's, I think, a contact and all that. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Great. And I will put those information in the show notes, like I said. And when you talk about a vision for a better world, can you just remind me how many women this affects?
So there's different stats, but the big one is that 1 in 4 women will have a miscarriage. And I mean, all of us know more than 4 women. Everyone knows someone that's been through this. And, again, often that's why I said when it comes to sharing, you might be surprised. Like when you start sharing who comes forward, whether it's an aunt, sometimes it's a mother or a friend, and you didn't know that they struggled silently. And it's just can be a good way to connect and heal together. So, but yes, it impacts a lot of families, unfortunately.
Allison, I'm so happy you're on my show. I'm so happy that you're writing your memoir too, just to share more of your journey. And please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you spread the word when that comes out. And if you had any last advice to leave to my listeners or anything we didn't cover, please say it now.
Gosh, I mean, I think just whether or not you're struggling with miscarriage, I mean, I know all of us have struggles. If you're having a struggle right now, I would just say that you're not alone, and to know that. And, if you're feeling that way, to know that you're not, and there are resources out there. So,
Yes, and one of the ways we can connect with others is through volunteerism. I wrote a book about how, like we talked about, giving is selfish, and it's selfless too. It's got this great synergy. But volunteerism is proven to help you live longer, help you have lower blood pressure, help you have stronger social connections, reduce loneliness, help with anxiety. One of the reasons why I do my work is to really advocate for giving to yourself, because it is a way to not just help others, but also to pick yourself up and give yourself that gift of helping others. It's a beautiful synergy.
oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm an introvert at heart, and it's so easy for me to pass on things. But I will say, anytime I do anything, any type of volunteering, I always leave feeling, my cup is filled and feeling that connection. And it's just so important for us individually and us as a society to maintain that. So I love the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Allison. I'm so glad we connected, and I will hope my listeners will find you wherever they tune in online to either Instagram or your website, and or your podcast. Certainly, podcasting is such a good resource for everybody to hear people's stories, and I'm so glad you shared your story today.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you.